total of 24 non-features from countries such as India, Myanmar, Nepal, and Bangladesh. And today we have the filmmakers that we have today are from the package Shape of Her. The 24 films that we have in the non-feature section are divided into 4 packages. One of the packages that we have here today is Shape of Her, like I mentioned. The package has 6 filmmakers from India, Myanmar, and Nepal. And all of the films are connected by how they elevate the female experience, right from teenage coming of age to stories about resilience and also oppression, how oppression and emancipation are 2 sides of the same coin. So we'll hear more about the films from the filmmakers. We also have 2 of the filmmakers from the After Dark section. They are also non-features. I'll just introduce all of them one by one, and then we can take the conversation forward. First, I'd like to start with, I'll just intro all of them actually. We have Virat Pal, who has directed the film Night of the Bride. It's in the After Dark section. We have Rathindran Prasad, who has directed the film Amilam. It's also in the After Dark section. We have Bidushi Giri. She's directed the film A Bleak Home. It's in the South Asia non-feature section. We have Yudhajit Basu, who has directed the film Nehemich. It's also in the South Asia non-feature section. We have Ayarush Paudel, who's directed the film Helena. And last, we have Sumi Mathai, who's directed the film The Awakening. The first thing I'd like each of you to tell us a little about is how all of y'all started off in your filmmaking journeys, because I know there's a couple of first-time filmmakers, but there's also filmmakers who have been making films for a while. So I also want to understand, how did all of y'all start out? We can start from you. You want to start from there? Okay, Sumi?
Hello. Hello. Yeah, okay. The question is, how did
you start off making movies?
Making movies. So my background is advertising. I was working as a copywriter in advertising agency in Bombay, and I was deeply dissatisfied, and I always wanted to make films. And I've been attending MAMI since 2012, the year I moved to Bombay. So I feel MAMI pushed me to make films in a way, because every year I would come watch films in MAMI and feel so inspired by the films that I'm watching, and I would feel like I want to do this. You know, this is what I want to do. And I got an opportunity from MAMI itself in 2017, where there was this initiative where MAMI and Jio Cinema, they curated a program where they invited scripts from anyone or from all over the nation, and the selected scripts were given a grant to make the film. So I was one of the people who got selected, and I made the film, and that premiered at MAMI in 2017. That film is called Detour, which starred Shiny Gupta and Vikrant Masse, and it won the special jury mention at MAMI. So, you know, I have such a strong MAMI connection, because I feel like MAMI curated me in a way that, you know, from watching movies at MAMI to getting a chance from MAMI to make a film. And then there was this gap, 5 years gap, and then I made my second film, and I'm here with my second film. And I feel like I'm steadily going into, you know, fully into filmmaking.
Hi, I'm Ayarush. For me, the journey started very late actually. Up until my high school, I was taking different classes like physics, chemistry, maths, biology, and all different sorts of, like, very into the STEM discipline. However, it was, I think, in my 12th grade that I realized I was just studying them for the sake of the exams, you know. So whenever there was a test or something, I would go to the test, and I would I would take the exam, and then I would get the grades. But as soon as the test was over, all the things that I had learned, like, it was gone. So if the same paper, if I would take the same exam at 12 and at 3, I think, like, the one that I would take at 3 would have, like, significantly lower grades, because in my head I was always programmed just to prepare for the test, you know. And I was kind of like exploring things, and I think in my Yeah, and on the same year, one of my friends, he recommended me Breaking Bad, and then it just changed my life, the way I see movies, because the first thing that I like, it's still like vividly in my memory is the way the series used camera and the way it used the cinematography to tell the story. And they would place the cameras inside the basin, inside the cupboard, inside the refrigerator, everywhere. And I was very curious, like, how did they do it? So yeah, that sparked the curiosity, and then I started like watching more movies, and then started watching more behind the scenes on YouTube, and finally went to film school and decided to pursue it as a career. Thank you.
I'm Yudhajit. Actually, I started like quite a few years back. I think it was in 2014. I was in engineering, studying electronics for a year, and then I gave it up because by then I had seen a few films, of which there is one film which it might sound cliche, but that literally changed my life. It was Nuribil Gajalan's Once Upon a Time in Anatolia. So after that film, I decided that, yeah, cinema is my calling. I have to do it. So I applied for a course in mass communication in Xavier's, and I finished the course in 2016. After the course, I tried for SRFTI because FTII, the film school in Pune, was a 0 year. I couldn't get in. And I tried for many other places, Jamia Millia and all of the XIC, the places that teach filmmaking or mass communication in postgrad. I couldn't crack any of them. So I made 2 short films. I formed a company called Utan Pictures. I made 2 films in Nepali because at that time I was traveling a lot and I was talking to the local people, and I found a very different part of India which is largely unrepresented in the cinemas, and I felt that let me try my hand on my own. So I made 2 films, and finally in 2017, after finishing 2 films, I got into FTII, and after that I sold those 2 films to Mubi. So by the time I was in second year, I had already 2 films on Mubi, so that gave me a confidence. But in FTII, what I learned more than filmmaking was other things. It was like understanding my own country, because I had the opportunity of having batchmates from all around the corners and from different culture, different language. So it opened up myself differently, and I was exposed to many other forms of art, photography, literature. I began to watch less and less movies because I was more into making them. And after making a couple of short films in FTII, I made one documentary called Kalsubai, which somehow luckily got me a little bit of international acclaim. It won an award at Oberhausen, and it was shown in ITFA and many other places. After that, I finished this year my film school diploma in January with the film Nehemich, which was selected in Cannes Film Festival in the official selection La Cinef. And after Cannes, I was really very keen to show the film in MAMI in India. And that I was really waiting if MAMI would select. And finally MAMI did, and I'm very grateful for that. And yeah, I'm right now planning and prepping for my first feature film, which I'll perhaps start shooting from early next year. So thank you, MAMI, a lot.
Hi, I'm Bidushi, and so back, I guess it was 2017-18. I'm actually a dance teacher as well, and one of my friends, he was already in a film school, and he suggested me that I should write a script for him. It was his college project, and during those times, I always felt like, although I'm a dance teacher, I still need a wider space where I could express myself more. So I wrote a script for him, and that was appreciated pretty well in our circle only. That did not go that far away, but after that, I started getting attracted towards it more, And then I joined the school, and this is actually my debut film. So I'm just at the first step and with a very little experience. So that's that. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Virat. To basically sum up my background and my experience, I right out of college I got into Google and I worked there like in sales and marketing for a brief amount of time, and it was a great experience working there. It's a really nice company, but while I was working there, I decided that I should I always I loved films, I loved cinema, and being in the After Dark section, I would like to point out I love horror. Uh, I love uh, I love thrillers. I love Silence of the Lambs is my favorite film, and The Sixth Sense, and those kind of films. So, and that's the kind of stuff I'm always gravitated towards, and that's the kind of stuff I wanted to do. I somehow through just life landed up in Los Angeles. I studied some screenwriting and cinematography over there, and while I was there, I made a science fiction short, and then I made like with my like bunch of friends this like 16 millimeter black and white like micro budget feature. We were very inspired by Aronofsky and Alex Ross Perry and Nolan's Following and all those kind of films. And then I thought I'm not really doing what I want, which is like to make like really dark horror stuff. So I made like this short, which we just made as like a fun experiment, like a proof of concept, and then we put it up on YouTube. It's called The Bells. It did really well. It's like at like about 8 million views now, and we got encouraged. I started writing horror scripts, and then we made another horror short that went to a lot of film festivals and like sort of fantastic genre film festivals in North America and Europe. And then I was working on this Indian horror feature because I believe we should in India also have like, I know we have horror films and things like which are happening especially in other parts of the country, but I thought like we should have like this amazing Hindi horror feature, and I was working on that. And actually my wife who works with me, who's also a producer on my short Night of the Bride, she works with me as a producer, and both of us came down to India to make the feature, and it all fell apart. It's very hard to make features here, especially in the genre space, and we were very discouraged, and we were going to go back to LA, and we thought ki while we are here, we told all our friends back in US that we came to make a film, so let's make a film. And I'm from Delhi originally, so I just made the film in Delhi with local creative collaborators in Delhi, which is hard because film industry hubs are Bombay and Hyderabad and Chennai and a couple of places, not Delhi. So, but somehow we were able to find local collaborators, and I'm very proud of that. And actors, cinematographers, and special effects people, everybody, and we made this film. And I just took it with me, finished the post in LA, and then it just got. It's a very Indian sort of a film in Hindi, but it's horror, like very like mainstream horror, and people connected and resonated with the film at Fantasia and Overlook Film Festival. These are all like genre festivals in North America and Europe. And but I always loved Mami, and I've known about it since I was in college, and I thought we should apply here and see if they accept horror films or genre films. And I was really, really ecstatic when we got in. So thank you, Mami, for that, and thank you so much.
Okay, so I started. My passion for cinema started when I was 5. So back in the days, we didn't know how movies were made. So my cousin had my cousin bought a this VHS tape of Michael Jackson Thriller. So back in the days, anyone who could dance like Michael Jackson, like they're the coolest kid, and I can't dance, so I really can't dance. And then there was a section after that Michael Jackson Thriller video. So this was the making of the Thriller, right? So this was the first time I actually got to watch how movies were made. So this was John Landis directing Michael Jackson. Then I thought, okay, Michael Jackson doesn't know what to do, so there's a guy who tells him what to do, and I want to be that guy. So I was impressed by John Landis. And then the next thing that I used to do is I used to get kids who can dance like Michael Jackson, and I used to fake direct them. And so from then on, I used to make prosthetics with this puri batter and but dough and these kind of things. And So I mean, unfortunately, my school principal was my mother. So I had to literally quit my school when I was like 11th standard, run away from my city and come to Chennai. And luckily, like, I landed up in multimedia. I was in the multimedia industry for some time. Then after that, like, I shifted to advertising. So I worked on more than 350 commercials. Then I started directing commercials. Then there was a phase that, like, I became extremely left. So my ideologies were like, kind of contradicting the job that, like, I was doing. So one fine day I quit advertising, and then like, I started working in films. So basically, like, in 2000, so I was in Germany for some time. Like, I was working in theater. I was working on this, like, an avant-garde project, like, that kind of combines both the theater, films and installation art together. So then I was like, then somehow, like, a producer, like, from London, like, watched that project and then wanted me to direct a British film feature. And then, like, I was like in London, but then I was not, like, really happy with the way the script was written. I mean, of course, it had every cliche of, like, those are like post Slumdog Millionaire. So like, so India is like was the coolest subject there. And then, like, in fact, they wanted me to, like, do a song and all that. And why would I, like, come to London and do a song? Film with song. So then, like, actually somehow, like, that film didn't take off. So I came back, and then, like, I did my first short feature. So which my wife, like, she's like a Turkish indie producer, so she produced it. So Swear Corporation, so that landed in Cannes, short film short film corner. Then we decided to do a feature here in India. So my first film was called Idu Vedalam Sollum Kadai. So basically, this story is narrated by a Gol. Vetal, whatever. So so luckily, like, Abhay Deol came on board, and so he was like one of the co-producers, and he also acted. So that was his first regional film. So which he acted, and so he co-produced it, and we had, like, some great talents from Tamil Nadu as well. So unfortunately, like, that film got, like, after we finished it, and then we had some issues, so that film got stuck. So I was, like, super depressed, like, all our savings and everything got stuck in that film. But of course, like, the teaser went viral, but we couldn't get the film out. So like 2 years, like, I was, like, really depressed, and one day, like, I got a call from so I'm sure, like, actor Vijay Sethupathi. So I got a call from Vijay Sethupathi, and, like, he called me to his his office, and he was like, so I had narrated a story, like, long back when he was in theater. So he said, like, why don't you do that film? Like, what are you doing sitting at home? And so that's how, like, I mean, he was not part of it, but then, like, he really, like, helped me get the producers and all that stuff. So that's how, like, I made this film called Bhumika. It's there on Netflix with Aishwarya Rajesh. So again, like, that's, like, kind of a genre film. This is the first ecological horror, Indian horror. So it's there on Netflix. And then yeah, so we initially, it was supposed to be a theatrical release. The pandemic happened. So of course the film got stuck, and again, like, I was depressed for the next 1 year. I didn't know what to do. Then I got this break from Maniratnam sir. So he actually, technically, he launched me in Navarasa. So I directed, so he gave me a section called, again, it's Fear. So actually that was not my choice. But so in that, like, I mean, I did a horror, and then, like, the next film that I was doing was, again, the topic was fear. So I did this segment called In My with Siddharth and Parvati Thiruvotu. So that happened, and then, like, post-release, like, one day, like, I get a call from Soham Shah Films, and okay, so that time, like, I didn't know, like, Soham Shah Films. So they said, like, they wanted me to, so the producer of Bhumika, like, he said, like, hey, you know what, like, they wanted you to, direct another thing, whatever it is. Then I came to Bombay. So then I was, like, trying to find out, okay, who are these people? Like, what did they produce? Then they said, okay, we produced Tumbad and Ship of Thesis. Okay. Tumbad and Ship of Thesis, fine. So yeah, so I mean, I presented a script, like, they really liked it, and yeah, so here I am.
Okay, now that we know a little bit more about all of you guys and how you all started filmmaking, I want to know more about the film that you all have made right now, the one that we all can see at Mami. Tell me more about how you all got started on making this specific film. Why did you want to tell this specific story, and what was the kind of emotions, or what were the themes that interested you? Tell us more about the collaborations that you had with the actors, with the cinematographers, with the editors, basically how you put this whole film together.
So the first time I thought about this idea for my film's name is Ullarivu, which means inner wisdom in Malayalam, and the English title is The Awakening. And the first time I thought about it was sometime in 2021, and it just came to me as a memory. It was a memory from my childhood, which I hadn't thought about in a very long time, and it just came back to me, and I had literally goosebumps because in hindsight, I remembered that incident was the first time I understood some things about the world. Like I was a little girl, and then an incident happened, and my little brain, like the child's brain, did some thinking, some computations, and figured, a new thing about the world, which is, okay, I don't have the access that I think I have, in the world. So when this memory came back, I felt so motivated to make a film about it, and so that was the beginning of starting the journey of Ullarivu. And I had just moved back to Kochi. I was in Bombay for 10 years, and I moved back to Kochi. So it's basically a new city for me. Even though I'm from Kerala, it is a whole new city, and I did not know anyone. And I knew one guy, which is the DOP, who I met in Goa, who also happens to be a Malayali. So I told him the story, and he's like, let's do it. Whatever it is, let's do it. And it was just two of us trying to make this film. And then slowly we started to put a crew together. Someone knew someone, someone knew someone. Like that, the crew formed. And the next thing, like funding, where is the money gonna come? Nobody wants to produce short films. So I met one producer in Kerala who turned out to be a super shady person who didn't want to do a contract, who didn't want to release any money to start the film. It's like, Sumi, you just start. I'm like, I need some money to hire people. You just talk to them, and then you just talk. You learn something. So very patronizing, and so I was like, I can't deal with people like this. Then I spoke to one producer in Bombay. That also turned out to be shady because the producer wanted the credit of creative director. So I was like, why do you want to be creative director? Because I'm going to creatively direct this film. So no. So I got disinterested in pursuing producers like this. Then I thought, okay, I'm going to crowdfund it, and then that was the biggest hurdle because emotionally I have to put myself out there, ask people for money. So it's like my insecurities, my vulnerabilities are all out on social media for people to see. But it just happened so beautifully, and I found people helping, I found strangers giving money, and I felt like, okay, you ask for help and you might just get it. And I raised 9 lakh and I made this short film. I produced it. I was a writer, director, and a costume designer, production designer, everything, went all ahead. And so I'm so proud that, it got selected at MAMI, and so much hard work went into it. Like 1 year of hard work went into it. And I know all films are just takes a village to make, but what was the question?
Okay, more about the film. Can we tell us more about the themes of the film?
Yeah.
A little bit about the story.
Yeah, so story being like a child's relationship with nature being taken away from her, because as a child who grew up in Kerala, known as God's own country for the abundance of nature and everything, and we, as a child, I used to always be out. It was so hard to get me in the house, and I used to get beaten up by my mother for being always somewhere, up on a tree or digging tapioca from the ground or something. So I had such a beautiful relationship with nature, and I always found so much happiness being in nature. As an adult also, I realized like nature is such a profound source of joy, and sometimes we don't get to access it as much because, like you have to think twice before going out for a walk in the night. And there was this TikTok video that went viral in last year something, like the TikToker asked, if there are no men in this planet for 24 hours, what would you do? And the answers were so heartbreaking because most women just replied, I would like to go for a walk in the night, or I would like to have a picnic under the starry night, under the starry sky, all night spent in the park. So it's just like the desire to be out in the nature freely without worrying about, getting sexually assaulted or like molested. So all this, and where did it start? Like, when did I realize I have to be very wary about being a girl out in the world? When was the first day of the rest of my life? Ullarivu is about a girl realizing that she's a prey in a predatory world, and how things will change for her from that day, and how she will look at her relationship with the world, her relationship with men around her, how it changes in one day. That is the theme. And there are many different layers also in that film where I have tried to bring about this segregation through, the costume. Like the women are wearing pink and the men are in blue costume. Like the front of the house is like blue, like, that's where the man of the house occupies, the place that he occupies. And kitchen is pink, like where the women are assigned. And like even today, like when a child is born, we celebrate it with pink if it is a girl and blue if it is a boy. So this segregation happens from the moment of birth. So I've tried to bring that in the costume, in the colors used in the film. And there is this game that the kids play. It's called 5 stone game, and you just play it with you have to have a certain dexterity to play it with your hand. And we see the sister playing it, and I've also tried to use that as a metaphor, towards the end of the film. Like you have to play it so carefully that if you blink, you lose. And that's like also a metaphor for a woman's life. Like if you blink, if you lose your acute sense of awareness of where you are, you might just get, assaulted, or like something bad can happen. Like that's the reality of women living in today's world. You just can't put your guards down. You have to be so wary of yourself, the people around you, and your existence is like a game. And a little girl learns the rules of this game in patriarchy, and that is what the film is about.
For me, so I was living in the UAE for 3 years, more or less, and then at the end of my undergraduate education, I had to make a film. And the idea for me for the film was always to make a film about Nepali migrant workers, the expat workers who live far from their family, but all the little details I hadn't figured it out. However, like when I discussed it with my professor and my friends, I wanted to tell the story through the perspective of a female, because very often than not, whenever the conversation revolves around migrant workers going to the Gulf countries from Nepal, India, and all the South Asian region, the conversation always revolves around men, whereas there are like female who work equally hard, if not more, that in the UAE. So that's where I was pretty sure that I wanted to make the protagonist a female. And during all this, in my second year, me and a couple of my friends, we were in this place in the UAE called Hatta, where I met this a Pakistani old man who was 62 or something, like mid-60s, And this is also one of the things that I had felt in the region, that because we are from the same region in Asia, I can understand Hindi and Urdu, and instantly there's a bonding between us, although I'm from Nepal and we share different borders. And talking to him, he was living in the UAE for 42 years, and every year he would go back home for a month. So roughly in the 42 years, he had been home for 3.5 years. And it was just like it just stuck with me, and it was in the back of my mind for a very, very long time. And then all the conversation that I would have with the staffs on campus, or the taxi drivers who would drive in the city, it's always they're there in the Gulf for their family, to send money, to uplift financially. But again, they are not there with the family to see it. Like the relationship is always sustained through video calls and gifts, and it's just a means of compensation for the absence in the life of their family. And these two things just like blended together, and then along with these, once I started researching more, I found out that the workers who work, mostly the South Asian people in the UAE, they are blue collar workers who get off days only like once or twice a month. And this was also very tough in terms of casting as well, because I had to find someone who had been through that experience, and I couldn't call them for audition because they would have their 9 to 12 hour shift every day, and things like these, like they blended together. And also the fact that they would do it for very little money, that was just the minimum wage there, and then it would translate to a big amount back home in India, Pakistan, Nepal, which is why just the missing of a small 150 dirhams turns out to be a huge factor for the protagonist. And lastly, the other thing that I want to touch upon was the friendship that these people find among themselves. And in the movie as well, the character of Shinu was developed in the same way, because when I was talking to a lot of waitresses in the restaurant, it turns out that the people who work together also live together in the same room, which is why they would have turns in between shifts. So if someone cooks the meal, then the other person, they would do the dishes and things like that, and within themselves they had found this family. So all these things it blended together, and then resulted Helena at the end.
Oh well, this was my diploma film from my film school, Film and Television Institute of India. And though I come from West Bengal and I speak Bengali, and Marathi is not my mother tongue, but for me it was not very difficult, because so far whatever I have made, the couple of short films, none of them are in my own mother tongue. So I've been used to making films in languages that I don't know, and about people who are not very close to my own culture, because this is something I like doing, because I think India is a country which gives a filmmaker this unique opportunity to explore different culture, different language, without trying to cross the country, and you feel like you live in several countries at the same time. But with respect to this film, which is called Nehemich, I think as far as my Marathi knowledge goes, I am missing my director's assistant, Anjali, who would always help me with the language. In Marathi, right now this word is used as every time or every now and then, but this word has a lot of other meanings as well, which is often used in Marathi poems. Like this word can also mean like for all the time remaining. It can also be like eternal, stuff like that. So this word is has a lot of connotations. So for me, Nehemich is for all the remaining time. And the story of the film, I did not write it like a story right away, because often it happens that I chance upon a film quite organically without writing it down as a story first. So I think just after the pandemic, when the film school opened, I was traveling a lot in Maharashtra, especially in the rural parts of Maharashtra, mainly to photograph people and places, which I like doing a lot. And I remember one afternoon, I think in the month of August, in the Satara district of Maharashtra, when suddenly, as I was traveling in a car, I could hear a rumbling sound. I don't know coming from where. And the road was very foggy. I could not say anything. I mean, I could only hear the occasional sound of the windscreen on the car and that rumble. So I stopped the car, I went out of the car, and I could understand that this place is huge, but it's covered with dense mist. And as the mist cleared up, I saw there were like gigantic turbine blades all around me. And slowly I realized I have come to a place called Chalkewari, which is like a 40-kilometer stretch of almost an endless road with 500 windmills on either sides. That image and the sound impressed me deeply. It remained with me. But of course, I didn't have any idea of a film. I took a lot of photographs and I recorded the sounds. Back in Pune, when I was kind of trying to find out a story for my diploma, I think I chanced upon an article in a newspaper about the death of a woman in a village called Gadchiroli in Maharashtra. That girl died while she was during her menstrual cycle in a gaonkar. Now, when I researched further, I found that the word gaonkar in Marathi means village. But then, when I started talking more, especially to the rural women, I understood that there's another coded meaning of the word gaonkar, which means isolated huts outside the villages, where women are kept while they go through their periods. And this is quite rampant in Maharashtra and Nepal, especially these two places. I mean, menstruation is a taboo in our country, that's nothing new, but in Maharashtra and Nepal, this practice of isolating the women inside huts, which have little to no sanitary facilities, and there are many reports of death, rape, and lots of almost inhuman stuff going on, which had been, I think, few magazines like Caravan, etc., they try to cover, but most of them get hushed up by the mainstream media. So that intrigued me a lot. But what I was really looking for was what happened to these women during the pandemic. Because during the pandemic, we as a human race, we all were isolated inside our house, which these women experienced every period during their menstrual cycle. So I guess pandemic was not so remarkable to these women, I guess. So I went to the village with my friends, especially my assistant, who is a Marathi and who had also been my DA in my other films. So, but when I started talking to the villagers and the NGOs who are working on this, I got to know a lot of news, a lot of articles that, and a few documentaries have also been made on this topic. But the main question that I was trying to find, that what exactly happened to these women while there was a pandemic, I found no concrete answer. Because most of the villages in Maharashtra, they were not very aware of the COVID virus. And more than COVID, they were afraid of the vaccine. So I didn't find any answer. But by that time, because of my travels and numerous interactions with the women in the villages, I found that they referred to menstruation with a very coded word or a phrase. In Marathi, of course, I'll sound very, not the right Marathi, but somewhat like Kaurana Shula, which means I'm touched by a crow. This is, if a village girl says this to another village girl, they mean that I am having my periods. On the other hand, I read somewhere else, I was reading a book about a person who works in a windmill farm or something like that, that one of the main reasons the turbine blades of a windmill gets damaged is when birds, especially crows, go through them. They don't understand that there's a turbine, so they die, but the turbine blades stop working, which is why after a windmill is set up in a place, slowly you won't hear a bird sound. All the birds get an information that these are death traps. So you won't find sound of birds around a windmill farm. But before that, you will find a lot of dead bodies, dead birds. So these two things, turbine blade being stopped by a bird, and eventually the bird dying, and that phrase used by the village women in Maharashtra, that I have touched by a crow, meaning menstruation, meaning that I'm running periods. These two things kind of felt they were linked in my head, obliquely obviously, and I tried to bring these two things together in a film. It took me a while to write the final screenplay. So after a basic draft, me and my DOP Rachit, we went for scouting locations. And one of the main key themes that I was very keen was not to make it informative, because there's a lot of documentaries which have already been made on this topic. And I personally believe that a film can't really bring awareness. I mean, it does over a very long period of time, but I don't think that a film needs to have a social message. So I was very keen not to make it a quote unquote socially relevant film. But I was interested in exploring basically how a woman thinks, which is very hard to do as a male director. And obviously I haven't succeeded, but I tried it. And another thing which intrigued me to make this film against the background of the pandemic was that while I was in my hometown in Calcutta during the two very remarkable periods of COVID, one thing struck me very deeply was that as more and more people were dying and human beings were not interacting with the nature, nature was becoming more beautiful. On one hand, every day we would hear lots of death news, and at the same time, we would see a sky never bluer as before. We would see a sky with so many stars and beautiful, humanless roads, jungles with animals coming into neighborhoods. So this very uncanny contrast between death and beauty, it struck me that nature is very, what to say, what's the right word? Nature is very indifferent to the to the death of men. I wanted to bring it in my film, which is why I chose locations which were empty. Generally, that's not how India is, but in order to bring about the sense and the atmosphere of the pandemic, it was essential to find spaces which were empty and use very little human voice. Because for me, this contrast was the source of the fear. More than seeing dead bodies, this contrast between death and beauty, this was the fear for me. And that fear I felt can be brought or can be somewhat expressed cinematically through images which are haunting, beautiful, but at the same time uncanny. That was the main idea. And one thing that I think which many people asked me is the metaphor in the film, because the film is basically a story of a young girl during her menstruation. She's staying with her sister inside such a hut, and she's trying to elope with her lover. And there's a scene with a donkey where she bids goodbye before leaving for the hut. So many people, they thought there were lots of metaphors and symbols in the film, which I never intended. Those were very instinctive decisions. But on hindsight, I think that no matter what, there's certain metaphors which automatically come when you think in certain way. And now I think that I was more concerned with the fear inside a woman and the fear of the pandemic than the story of the film, which is why the story of the film is very thin. I mean, it doesn't have a very strong structure. It doesn't follow a very cause and action logic. It is more like how one weaves a poem, or maybe one weaves a photo book. It came out like that, I think. And it's very difficult to comment on your own film, because when you are so much involved with it, you lose objectivity. So I don't know. For me, I think the ending puzzles me. I myself puzzled by the ending. I don't know what it means, but during the editing, that was the place I thought the film should end. And I had no concrete answer or logic. But I must say that I worked with the same crew in my film school from the very first year. So we all know each other well as friends. So there was not much problem. We all kind of understood, and the collaboration was pretty smooth. And especially, I must say, with the sound designer, I wanted the turbine blades to function like a kind of a kind to personify the turbine blades. The sound of the blades for me should be like a moan of an old instrument. And we both worked very hard on it. We don't know whether we have achieved it, but that was the intention, that the sound of the turbine blades is the main soul of the film, I think. Yeah. Old as in it's like the moan of a machine, that was what I wanted, because I mean the sound that a turbine blades, I mean the normal blade makes, is not what the sound in the film. It's a made up sound. We did a lot of, we recorded a lot of other sounds, mostly old machines, as if the blades were moaning, and somewhat like that. It's very difficult to describe, but that was one of the main intention, that the sound of the turbine blades is the movie's soul for me, in a way. Yeah, it's like rusty, though it's not rusty in the image. So for me, that sound was the soul. It started from there. Yeah. Thank you.
So, I was born and raised in Kathmandu, which is actually the capital city of Nepal. And I come from a joint family. We are a family of 10 members. And I am actually the first daughter in my family. I mean, since the past 4 to 5 generations, we only have sons. And I was actually the first eldest daughter. And with that came a lot of pampering and a lot more care than required. But something that came along that was some kind of oppression or patriarchy. And so what happened was I always had these really vivid images of my past experiences that I always wanted to get out off of my system. And like I said, I didn't have any place to go and express it. So time passed by, and then it was time that we had to start writing our script for the graduation project. And since day one of my film school, I always had this thought at the back of my mind that maybe I should develop this project as my graduation project. So yes, this is actually, I had some innocent desires, I must say, in the past years that led into the exploration of some kind of pain and guilt, which I could not take it out of my system. And still, I guess it's still somewhere always inside me. It's always going to be inside me. So yes, everything that happened, it inspired me to write this project and develop this project, and I'm here today.
So I must say, like all my fellow filmmakers, their stories have been so incredible, and the way they came to their projects, and very thoughtful, very articulate, and I'm going to probably sound a little juvenile in this panel because my and but I'll be honest. I wanted to just make, my wife and I, we make uh, like we wanted to make a film which would first and foremost be like an effective sort of like a scary film, and we were going to make. I had written another script which was like set in like this like a village hut, and it was like another horror concept, but we realized we couldn't do it. It was too expensive, too ambitious perhaps for us, and I wrote this the script which was for our film Night of the Bride. Um, as somebody who's a lover of genres films and like horror films, I always feel like a female character, especially the films I've grown up, you immediately have like empathy for them. You can relate to them, you can root for them. Films like Carrie and Suspiria and Rosemary's Baby, all these films, they are like centered around a woman. And I was actually, when we couldn't make our first short thing which I had written, I was also written this like sort of like a show which was considered too dark, and it didn't get like we weren't able to go forward with it. Was like about like this domestic violence thing, but it had a, like the genre bent to it. And I started. I just told my wife one day, ki, because that show was about like a couple, and especially a woman who had to endure this like really like horrendous behavior from her husband, and what happened is like a really like sort of a horror sort of a whatever idea, that I said like, why don't we like I'm seeing all these movies and I love watching all these Indian movies which have wedding as their backdrop, and it's so colorful and sweet and like festive, and sometimes, and we were because we had done a lot of research for like our show, I thought like there are like women who are forced into these marriages against their will by families, and yeah, we hear about it happening more in like maybe rural areas or villages, but no, I think these things are like prevalent everywhere, and sometimes we just don't know about it, what happens behind closed doors. And I thought that kind of juxtaposition was very like interesting, that you show this like educated affluent family with like this beautiful like mansion sort of a house forcing this woman to get married. And initially the idea was, oh, a woman is getting forced to get married, which again is horrifying in its own way, and she's captive, and she's going to get married to some guy. Oh, what is this guy? Like, he's like, we see his face is covered with a veil. What's up with him? And then, well, I don't want to spoil the film, but like we find out something happens with this guy, and I told my wife, oh, that's a cool idea. Now what will happen next? And just by like us spitballing, and I just sort of like came across this idea. I thought it was very compelling, very interesting. I wanted to watch that film, and it was also something we had to make sure we can shoot in 2 days, because we had a very limited amount of money. This is our own personal savings, and first we were going to make it in Bombay with these collaborators we knew, but we couldn't make it in Bombay. It's very hard and financially difficult to make the film here. So we thought of making it in Delhi, and we met the cinematographer Anshul Unyal, who was a big help, a local Delhi cinematographer. Now he works both in Delhi and Bombay, but he helped us connect with the production designer and the costume designer. We got the location, and I will say, I feel like as long as you're authentic to what you want to say, but like also authentic to what kind of filmmaker you are, I think that is very important. And I am a filmmaker who, I mentioned I was very focused on just making a fun. No, I won't call this film fun. I just wanted to make an effective horror film, and I really resonated with the themes, and the theme of like sort of subverting this like colorful sort of sweet festive event, and just showing what could be the most scary, gruesome nature of it, and then what would the protagonist do when she's pushed into this corner. And I also come from a very DIY filmmaking thing. We just sometimes have made films like in our like house, in like our apartments, and we've never had the financial sort of backing to make a film where we could like really like find just the right thing. But I think in this film we were very lucky that we found the right location, the right collaborators, and the actors who were like these who are all these like theater actors in Delhi, but they were so enthusiastic to make the film. They were just making it for the passion. I think that's very important, especially in a short film, and we were able to make it, and that was the journey of our short.
Okay, so first, like, when I came in, the first person I saw was Virat. So because we both were the only people, like, in After Dark section, and the first thing Virat asked me was, like, what's the genre of the film? And so of course Virat's film is horror, and so basically I just had to tell him, okay, it's a genre bending film. But here, when you ask me to, like, speak about the film, so I'm going to actually, like, reveal a major spoiler of the film. So, I mean, if you guys have watched my film, good, but if you have not yet to watch, I'm sorry, guys. So I'm going to, like, give you the, you know, the biggest twist of the film. So basically, so when Soham Shah Films, Adesh Prasad, when he contacted me, and so the theme that, like, he had given me was, like, they were actually planning to make 10 different short films. The theme was pandemic, right? So it's called, the major theme was called Once Upon a Time in Pandemic. So theme was pandemic, and and every film was supposed to be a different genre. Okay, so the one thing that, like, I thought was, so my story is actually, okay, again, there are two major spoilers. Um, so sorry for killing my own film. So okay, the first spoiler is that, like, this film is actually set in the near future, so which you kind of come to know, like, as the film, it's just two actors. So it's basically, so I thought of, like, pandemic in the near future, lockdown in the near future, and then so basically this person Bala, who lives with this girl, we kind of come to know later in the film she's not a human, she's a humanoid, she's a sex bot basically. So the whole idea came when, like, I was actually, so something about, like, I was like researching about artificial intelligence and humanoids and all that. Then basically, like, I came across this concept. So one, again when it comes to horror, so somehow, like, horror is, like, one genre. Like, I mean, it's not technically horror, but so that keeps, I keep, like, landing into this landmine of horror. So one thing I'm actually, like, a little scared of is actually, I mean, I have a fear for mannequins. So even now, like, I'm not scared of, like, snakes or, like, wild animals or anything like that. Like, I in fact, like, live right now, shifted to a really remote place next to a tiger reserve. But one thing I'm actually scared of is mannequins. Like, I can't go near mannequins. I find them very creepy. So then, like, I came across this thing called sex bots, like, which is a culture, like, that's growing in Japan. So the thing is, like, the sex bot culture is, like, in a very nasal stage. So when we think about, like, sex bots, like, okay, we first thing, like, we're going to think about is, like, okay, I hope, like, we're all adults here. Okay, first thing we're going to think about is that, like, okay, that's going to be a dildo for men. No, it's not that. It's not that simple. So the way, so I was also, like, reading about, and I was, like, watching few documentaries about, like, the way the technology is going. So so in a way, it's actually, they're trying to replace the female partner, right? Then okay, then I was actually reading the comment section, so that was, like, pretty disturbing. So there were about, like, some 200 300 comments. I'm not exaggerating. Every comment was, like, a women hating comment. So when I actually, like, I went to profile, I was, like, seeing, I'm not trying to be a racist or anything like that. Even my wife is a European, but but 90% were, like, Western people, like men. So basically, like, talking about, yeah, like, I'm just waiting for this technology to come so that, like, we can show that we can teach these, like, women a lesson. We're gonna, I'm gonna buy buy this sex bot, like, she's going to be a slave, and then they were all talking about, like, let's get back a good old days where, like, we had this patriarchy and, like, this whole, so, and they were, like, extremely, I can't even say anti-feminist, but then, like, they're, like, really disturbing comments. Actually, you can go and, like, check that yourself. But then, like, really disturbing comments. So I was also, like, seeing one thing. So there's one thing, like, so you also, like, have a term for, like, these days, like, when you call, like, person who does not subscribe to the feministic views, they call them feminazis, right? So I was also like seeing there's like this complete polarization, like I mean not just among you know the left or the right or your political views, also like, and I'm seeing a huge polarization um, among the amongst the sexes, like, right? So there's like so then like, you know, that was so that became the theme of my story, like, you know, when I wanted to like, you know, set my story in future, in near future. So one thing is that like, you know, I don't like of course like, you know, I love reading more than watching, like especially cyberpunks and all that. But then like, you know, when it comes to visual, you know, you just like bombard your visuals with, okay fine, like, you know, I'm going to do a futuristic film, so I'm going to put as much technology as possible, as much VFX as possible, right? So you get carried away by that. So one thing is that like, I decided to stay away from all that and just stick to what is it going to be, you know, so what is it going to be a role of a human being in future, right? So what is an individual? The whole idea of individual, like, you know, keeps changing, like in every centuries, and then like now it started like changing every decades and every year, you know, especially with the social media. Like, you know, for example, social media can be an extension of your whole individuality, right? So when you're an individual, the first thing, like, you know, these days what they do is like, what anyone does is, okay, where are you from, what do you do? No, they immediately go to your Instagram profile, and that's how they know who you are, or the LinkedIn or Twitter or whatever, right? So I thought like, you know, this was an interesting space for me to kind of like, you know, explore you know, interpersonal relationship. So what if like, you know, in future, like, you know, there's a human being who's actually like living with a humanoid sex bot, right? And then the thing is like, you know, so there are two perspectives. One, the man living with the sex bot, because the thing is like, you know, he can't actually have a real connection with the real human. So he wants this like, you know, this perfect uh, you know, like a very hentai looking female bot. And then I also wanted to like kind of explore what it would be the humanoids view towards the whole thing. So then like, I was like, you know, working on this idea of, okay, basically, okay, if I was a humanoid, okay, if I was trying to, I'm in a society, so what would be my first thing? Let's say like let's say like a migrant worker, or like, and I just like shifted to another city. You try to blend in. So the humanoid, like, you know, trying to mimic a human being, and that humanoid doesn't like to be called humanoid, or it does not like, you know, accept her humanoid you know, reality, you know. So basically then what would happen is like, you know, of course like, you know, you buy a humanoid because like, you know, you think she's going to be perfect. No, when a humanoid tries to mimic a human being, she's going to become a nagging wife. Right? I mean, sorry, I'm not trying to be sexist, but then like, you know, that's a two point of view that like, you know, I wanted to bring in to the film. And yeah, so the thing is like, you know, I mean, of course like, you know, like there's also like a research which is like, you know, so the more we go into technology, the more we go into social media, actually like, you know, we are becoming more and more lonely. It's not actually filling our void, right? It's actually making the void bigger. So all these like areas like, you know, which I wanted to kind of cover more than like, you know, bombarding the screen with the VFX and you know, the you know, the production design and all that stuff, right? And so for this film, like, so when I was like, you know, initially like, you know, I got this idea, so it's like so Priya Anand, the actress, was there, like, you know, so in fact like the first time like, when I got this idea, like, you know, and I bounced this idea with her. And so when I had to like kind of like, you know, visualize a female humanoid, like, you know, she was a perfect, you know, person, like, you know, she had this like you know, kind of a body, like, you know, which would suit a humanoid. And and of course like, you know, we worked a lot on her. Of course when you watch the film, like, it would look very seamless, but like, you know, Priya is such a great actor, I can't even say it, like, you know. um, um, so she gave like a lot of, so I used to like, you know, give her a lot of materials. um, So first we did a workshop, like, we did a, we did a training session where, like, so she was trying to mimic a bot. We were watching a lot of YouTube videos and, like, watching. So basically, it's 10 years from now or like 15 years from now. We're not, like, mentioning the time yet, but so she was trying to mimic a real life bot and, like, how it would walk and all that stuff. Then we did another work on her body, like, the way she performs. Now she's a humanoid trying to mimic a human being, right? So there were this, like, 2 levels of performances that, like, that she had to pull off, and she was, like, extremely hardworking, brilliant in it. And on the other side, like, I was, like, lucky to get Arvind Swami sir to come on this project. So we both, like, worked in Navarasa, basically, like, so I was, like, directing a shot in Navarasa, and he was directing a shot in Navarasa, so I had known him. So the moment, like, I sent him the script, like, he immediately said okay. And of course, like, when so I was, like, lucky that, like, I had an actor like Arvind Swami, so who had, like, an immense knowledge about what is going on. I mean, he's an entrepreneur himself. He has software companies, and, like, he has, like, whatnot, and he's completely into video games and all that. And so basically, like, so when I was, like, when he read the script and he says, "Oh, that's me. That could be me," So the Bala could be me. So, and then, like, he brought in his own version of what if he was Bala into the project. And yeah, I think, I don't know if you want to watch the film after this. Anyways.
No, one of the things I think I liked the most about Amilam was that even though it is a yeah, of course I watched it. Even though it is a dystopian film, there are no clues about the fact that it is a dystopian film. Usually when you see a dystopian film, like you said, it's either technology or there's a futuristic part of, like, some kind of setting. This happens in a living room, and you get clues as the film goes on that this is a dystopian film, which I thought was one of the reasons why the film works so well, that it was, like, one of those atypical choices that you chose to take. I want to ask each of you, what would you say while you were making each of your films? What would you say was one atypical choice or a risk that you took that you knew that you didn't want to repeat, like things that other filmmakers were doing in the same kind of genre of film that you wanted to make, or the kind of story that you wanted to say? Sumi, could we start with you? I'm saying while you were making the film, could you tell me about what you think was one of your biggest risks that you took while you were making the film? What would you say was one of the bigger challenges or risks or something that you took that you knew you didn't want the film to look like other films that were there on the subject?
I think that those are 2 questions, are they?
No, the same one. But okay, like, what do you think were some of the risks that you took while you were making this film?
Okay, so I'm only, like, 2 film, like, have only made 2 films, this being the second film. So my challenge is always the fear that how badly I'm going to fuck it up. Like, so that is the biggest fear of mine. Like, will it fall flat? Will it be such a bad film? And then pushing myself to face that fear and accept the possibility of making a bad film. It's okay, I might make a bad film, but let me make the film. And the other challenge was, of course, the money, the crowdfunding. The crowdfunding went on for 3-4 months, and then I had to do a second stage of crowdfunding because needed money for post-production. So those were also the challenge. And directing kids for the first time. I directed Vikrant Massey and Shaini Gupta, and it was like a dream. Like, they were so good. But directing children from villages in Kerala who never saw, have never seen a camera before. So that also seemed like a challenge. But then I met this theater artist who did like a wonderful workshop for the children and prepared the children for kind of a complicated storyline, which is about like sexual abuse and losing the innocence of childhood, but without exposing the kids to the strong themes. So all these were challenges, I would say, and the even now the challenge is like traveling the festival. Like after Mami, what next? It's so tough to crack the festival, you know, journey. Like I hope having selected at Mami might, help, going forward. If not, that would suck really bad. But doesn't matter. Maybe I'll go make my next film.
I think for me, sorry. I think for me, story-wise, the biggest risk that I took was the decision in the film of the protagonist taking the money from the restaurant, because whenever I showed the cut to my friends and my professors, some of the opinions were leaving that scene like ambiguous and leaving it to the audience on whether she took the money or not, and then it would be the audience who would decide it. But for me, I was very clear on taking a stand, and I didn't want to leave it to the audience, because the way I had written the character and the way I had interacted with the people there, in my mind, it was very important that the audience would see that she would take the money, because first thing is like her kid was away, and then she had lied, and it had become a whole thing for her internally. And on that moment, when she had promised it and then she couldn't fulfill it, and she wasn't going home for the festival, as she would normally do every year. In my mind, like she had to take the money on screen, and although I didn't really think if the audience would feel uncomfortable like watching it, or I would give a certain bias. But everything was like, keeping all this aside, I really wanted it to happen, and maybe like have conversation on the topic if anyone has a problem with it. So yeah, taking a stand on that one was the risk that I took.
Well, it's a difficult question, because since it's a film school project, so I didn't have to worry about a producer or financer, and B, it's a short film. India has almost no market for short film, so there's no question of risk at all. I mean, the question of risk comes when there's a possibility of profit or a possibility of a market. India, I don't think commercially has any short film market possibilities. So when there's no market, there's no risk. So I don't think there's any risk, I mean, in that way. Creatively, well, if I have to be very frank, because since I have made films which are, say, how to put it, more inaccessible than this before, so-called inaccessible, I mean, from the reactions of the people, my friends and my professors, this is what I'm saying, because as a filmmaker, I don't know what is accessible or not. This, I don't think narrative-wise was a risk, but it might sound funny, but the risk was we had a fixed number of shooting days, because we can't extend, it's a film school project, and we had to shoot on our given dates. In that time, trying to make one of the characters of the film a donkey and directing it, I think was a very big risk. And the biggest challenge, it might sound funny, but it's actually the biggest challenge on the floor was how to shoot the donkey, because we were given a fixed shooting ratio. I mean, we had to shoot like in 1:4. We can only take 2 or 3 takes. But you can never direct a donkey. You will never know when the donkey's head will go up. It was very funny, but actually I was very nervous when I was shooting with the animal. But fortunately, she gave me beautiful takes, and I'm very happy. So, but the decision of using a donkey as a key character in the film, I think, was a risk.
So since my film is about infidelity, And I guess there are so many films that's already based on that, on this topic, this genre, I guess. Infidelity, I was always scared if my movie would be like just the other movie. And I'm still not sure if I have cracked it or not. And the other challenge that came on the floor was there's this scene where we have used a rain machine, and it was around 12 midnight, and we do not have film cities. We shoot in the real locations, and it was almost 12 in the night, and we were using the rain machine, we were using the water tank, we were using the generators, and there was a very loud noise. So this old man, he came out of his house, and he actually got angry at us, and he told that there are some electric wires, we have lots of poles and electric wires, our city is not really that managed. So he said that those wires, because of the water, it would catch fire, and the whole society, it could catch a fire over there. So our crew, we were really scared for a while. And then I was the one actually who realized that what do you do when there's a natural rainfall? The wires are always still there. So I just called the core team, and I said that let's take 3 to 4 shots, and then we will wrap it up. And those were the only shots that we used in the film. So, and the other challenges, I guess, challenges came like I'm just one film old, and back then that was my first film. So handling the crew, or talking to the professional actors, or later talking to the professionals in the post production, I guess that was a bit of challenge for me.
I think the biggest actually I think our entire project was one big risk, because many times when we started working on it, and I do feel I would tell this kind of like the log line or whatever the concept to some of my friends, and they thought it was so outlandish and crazy and out of left field. So I thought that people will just not get it. And where I come from, or because I've been in the US for so many years, I had a certain idea that people like short films and horror shots and like just these kind of things are like so prevalent over there, and it could be like a three from anywhere from a 2 to 3 minute film to like a 15-minute film, whatever. Length is not a criteria, but when you make films over here, sometimes the audiences can be like, oh, we don't know what happens earlier, or we don't have that much context for what happens next, and this is too short of a time. So I was a little worried about that. But then I thought, okay, I will take a risk and we'll get it made. We'll make it. And then when we were making it, the whole aspect of the special like in especially finding special effects artists in Delhi. We have a lot of special effects makeup, we have VFX. My wife I didn't have that much money for the shot, and we were like, how will we get this done? There is a sort of like somebody's dead in the film, and we are like, how will we show this like dead body like and make it really like believable, and the effects which happen later on. And we were very worried about that, because we thought we might not be able to find the right kind of artists, and all the ones the special effects artists, they are in Bombay. Some of them, even here, there are like 3 4 of them, and they're really much in demand. It's not like LA where they're like hundreds and hundreds of special effects artists. So that was another worry, but I think we found just the right person, and she was incredible. And I mean, there were other risks. Was like the casting guy was a real pain, and we were finding it very difficult to find actors. And in Delhi, and like the person who had the actress who had to play the bride, she was like the pivotal like the force of the film, and we needed somebody who was like really good. And I don't think we even had the resources for like, I mean, she kind of like did an audition for us, and like another character who another actor who plays a pivotal character, but like it was very difficult. We were just like literally, I was going by my gut feelings of just talking with these actors and then hoping that they deliver. I'm sure the feeling was mutual, because all of them, trust me, if you guys have ever been on a genre film set, or like films when like they're horror, when you're actually making it, it'll feel like, what the hell is going on? And this looks so stupid. You know, this will make no sense. All the crew people and some of the people like you know, the assist like this, like, you know, the focus puller or the sound recordist, they were constantly giving me looks like, sir, ye kya ho raha hai yahan pe? And like, what is the story? Because they don't have the context of the film, the story, so they don't really know what's happening, and they're like, ये ऐसा क्यों है? And you know, and I was like, I was just, and you have to always tell them that there is a overall vision and it will work out. Just trust. You know, trust is very important. Like everybody will say, like all your crew, collaborators, actors, everybody needs to have trust in you. You need to have trust in them. It's a give and take, and you have to make sure that the original vision you have is something you're able to like execute, and that's the biggest challenge we had. And I think there is a bit of a I want to voice it from on my wife's behalf, that because we had she and I had, we all our film collaborators are back over there, because that's where we've always made films. We knew nobody here in Delhi and in Bombay. So it was very difficult. We are making new relationships. We don't know if this person trusts us, doesn't trust us, will work with us, not work with us. It was very difficult. And it was, I think, a little hard on her part, because many people, many like from line producers to casting, like a casting guy, to like to us, like somebody working in production, sometimes they would not listen to her. And I think it really bothered her and bothered me, because we had never experienced something like that, and I think we were just, maybe we were having a bad experience, and that's when we actually found Anshul and like all the actors and all the people we started actually working with. Those were the real collaborators. So she did feel that there was this little bit of a misogynistic sort of vibe, where people would not even like listen to her. They would really address me. Ki Virat sir, what do you think? And she like, I'm like, she's, even though she's just a producer on this and working with, she's like my main creative collaborator, and we are the two people who are actually making this. So I think that was, I won't call that a risk, but that was a hurdle we had to cross. So it's just about finding the right people, guys. No. Now I'm only saying from her behalf. I'm talking on her behalf. I don't think she has faced that problem. Yes, these things happen everywhere, to be honest. It's just the probably the ratio is different. And I think, and again, I don't know, like, just, you know, you paint the entire place in one brushstroke. It's just perhaps we didn't find the right people initially, you know, and when we did find the right people, they were incredible and they were amazing and they were very collaborative. But I just want this is a total side note, but we went for a tech check, which I'm guessing you guys may have done or not done. I don't know. I went for my tech check for the short, okay, before it was going to play at Malad. So it was playing at Malad, and the tech check was like a night prior from 2 to 6 a.m. when they're having these tech checks, okay. So there was this opening ceremony thing, and both, because they're having it 2 to 6 a.m., the thing got over at around 2:30, and my wife and I left, and I was going to go for the tech check at Malad in Orbit Mall, and I was coordinating with the Mami representative and everything. My wife was like, "Why are you going alone?" Because you know, we are living in an Airbnb here, and she would just, I mean, she like, "Why don't I come? I also want to watch the film and all that." So she comes with me. Okay, we go in like in this auto rickshaw, whatever. We land up there, and the security guard is like, "Ye ladies, they can't go." I'm like, "Oh, this was never communicated." She said, "After hours, women are not allowed." So my wife said, what we, on the opening ceremony, they announced it's 200 films selected, 75 directed by women. What if a woman director would come? You would not allow them? Nahi, mujhe nahi kuch pata. So we were like, just like baffled. We're like, and 10 becomes 20 minutes, becomes 30 minutes. Even the poor Mami, like representative, the guy who's there for tech check, is totally like befuddled. He doesn't know what to do. And and I tell the security guard, he's like, "Ye mall ki policy, this was never communicated to us." And it was like, it was just, it was unfortunate situation. But the point was, I was telling him, what is she supposed to do? Like, stand here? Why can't, it's like a short film. It's not even like 1.5 hours. It's going to sit. So finally, they were able to sort it out that she was escorted, you know, inside by an Inox representative. Again, I'm not saying, perhaps the mall and all these people have rules for reasons. But again, just to answer your question, this would not happen there. and it's just a cultural thing. And sometimes you have to respect the cultural thing, but sometimes the cultural stuff can also be a bit of a pain.
No, sorry. I mean, I kind of like experienced the same thing with my first feature. So because like my wife is like a Turkish indie film producer, and so she was the initial producer for my first Tamil feature, like semi-indie, semi-commercial film. We were shooting in Rajasthan, and so this would happen, like in Rajasthan, like not just the local Rajasthan people, even the camera team and all these people, like who would came from Chennai, and like so she'd be like helping them sort out hotels and all that. And so every time like she says something, they would actually like turn to me or to my first AD, and actually like um, so back in Turkey, like this is not like that. And so she used to like get really crazy on set, and then the thing is like so the only thing like they would actually talk about is like for the beta. So yeah, I think this is like a really big problem that I think we need to, as an industry, we need to kind of sort out and move forward.
Okay, my last question to all of you. What was the one freedom that the short film medium allowed you, that you enjoyed the most while you were making your films?
That it can get over in 3-4 days, and it's like those 4 days of work took me to a place where I had to rest for 4 months after that. So and maybe feature film would be taking so much more of your energy, and I'm not ready for that as of now. So the fact that I can get it done with in a few days is a nice freedom, I think. And the fact that sometimes some stories only work in a short format, and it shouldn't go into long format and make a mess of it. So finding those stories and giving them life in a short film format is also, I think, a beautiful freedom that this medium allows.
For me, I think not just this short project, but all the couple of projects that I've done in the past have helped me reflect on where I stand and the things that I've learned so far in the process and the things that I need to focus in the future. And I think that was one of the freedom with this project as well. I wanted to test out what I had learned in 4 years in NYU Abu Dhabi, and the things that I had like learned around the community living in the UAE, and just reflect back on it and see where it stand and see what the people would think of it and whether they would connect to the story or not. And again, like it was a short format, so I could test it out and without a big of a risk. So yeah, I had the, I guess, the freedom to try it out.
I think short film is perhaps the most liberating form of cinema for many reasons. I mean, as we were talking about the risk, since on one hand, when we are making a short film, we really don't have to consider what will it happen about the distribution, or whether a huge amount of people will like it, or whether we will be able to break even, make profit. On one hand, not having a very great market for short film actually becomes very liberating from an artist's point of view. And here, that's why the word risk, for me at least, doesn't come into your mind when we are working in a short film format. And also, I think practically it can be a very good stepping stone before making a long format, maybe a feature film. But other than that, I think with time, this short film has become an own independent expression. I mean, it is not only a stepping stone for a feature film, because I myself know many filmmakers who are friends of mine who continue to be short filmmakers. It's not that they don't get funds to make a feature film. They do, but they don't want to, because they prefer, like, they're non-fiction filmmakers, you know, they're documentary filmmakers. It's not that they don't get the opportunity to make a fiction film, that's why they're making documentaries. It's not like that. Similarly, with time, I think there are many people who want to be short filmmakers. I personally don't think that I will want to only make short, because I love the feature film format a lot. But I think short film is a expression in itself of cinema, and the most liberating form of cinema right now, where one doesn't have to consider many things, and it can be made in different ways. I mean, whether you have a big budget, big crew, small crew, whether it's a co-production or maybe a home video, it doesn't matter, as long as the duration is short. It is, and audience also accept it. I mean, people, when they come to watch a short, be it on YouTube or be it in a festival, I think the same audience who would reject a so-called art house film if it's a feature length, that same audience can accept a short, even if it's very experimental. It's peculiar, but that's true. Audience become very creative and very allowing, and they have a very open mind when it comes to short film. So in that way, it's very, very liberating.
So, like Sumi mentioned, I guess one of the advantages that comes with short film is that the schedule, like she mentioned, that you get done within 3 to 4 days. So I would like to elaborate that a little bit more. I personally believe that with the fixed schedule, I guess you get the freedom to take more time with the shots and the takes. Like you don't have to commit to a 60 or a 90-day schedule. And I also believe that short films are like a piece of cake. It's really short and it's really crisp, and you can say your story in a very short period of time. So yes.
Yeah, I kind of agree with everybody over here. I think they've already covered all the points. I also think they are also great testing grounds for an idea, you know. This Night of the Bride idea was actually the reason we made the short in a way was because I was actually like working on a feature concept very similar actually, and I just then thought, oh, why don't I just take this particular element of that and make the short film out of it, and if this works, maybe this larger idea might actually work. So that gave me the free. I think that was freeing, and actually I agree with Yudhajit and everybody else that you're not like burdened with this whole expectations of like revenue and whatever, like where will it go, and it's like it's actually very hard to make once in a I heard I'm quoting him, I'm paraphrasing, but I heard Christopher Nolan talk about how it's actually sometimes harder to make short films than features because you have such a limited amount of time and you have to convey an idea, and it needs to have its own beginning, middle and end, and it's actually really hard. But if you know, it's also can be very freeing and liberating because you get to just make something for just the passion of it, you know. And so yeah.
Yeah, so in my perspective, it's like, you know, when I did Amilam, like, you know, I had just finished a 35-day schedule for my feature, and then the pandemic happened, then like an Amilam happened. So like we had a really stressful 35 days in Ooty, and like, you know, we were shooting mostly in the night, and like it happens to be a horror. So like, you know, we were shooting mostly in the nights of December, like super cold, and we were doing like, you know, two shifts. And then like, you know, when we did Amilam, like, you know, it was like a vacation. You know, it was like easy and like relaxed, all that. But actually, yeah. So more than the you know, the execution part of it, yeah, of course, like, you know, short films are easy. So one thing that like, and I would like to say is that yeah, I mean, of course, like, you know, short films are great stepping stones, like, you know, for the feature films. I myself, after doing Swear Corporation, it's like, you know, my wife, like, you know, got a confidence of, okay, fine, like, you know, we can do a half-hour short, like, you know, we can do a 2-hour feature. Yeah, of course, it's a great stepping stone, but short films, in my opinion, are a format by itself. right, are a format by itself. So one of the things like was very liberating for me when I was doing, when I was doing Amilam was, so basically you don't have to like stick to a genre, right? Because otherwise, like when it comes to feature films, like when you're pitching, okay, what is this genre? Okay, you have to see, okay, this one meets that one meets that. You don't have all that. Like you can just, so in this, like of course, like working with Sohamsha films, like, and for me that pressure was there a little bit because, okay, so they've done Ship of Thesis 5 years later, then Tumbad, and then you're doing my film. Okay, so yeah, I had to live up to that expect. But then on the other side, so there was no pressure on what I should say, and like there's no pressure of like the interval block point, and like when you do, especially when you do a commercial film, you need to figure out like what is the interval block, and like all these things, like it's not there. So it was very liberating. On the other thing, like what I wanted to, one thing like that was like really um, how do you say, it was really exciting for me to do was like experimenting on a different format itself. So what happens is like this is also like something that like I'm seeing on a regular basis. So ADs like when they come to like join me, like they always like bring a short film, and then when I watch it, 99% of the short, they're not short films actually, they're mini features, right? And so they would have like all this like thanks credits, and then like they would have smoking is injurious for health and no animals were harmed. Okay guys, why? It's like opening credits, and then like and then like comedy, and like some of the short films like will have love, like with songs and all that. And I mean, we are cursed to have all that. And like when you have such a great format, like where you can just tell whatever you want, and like why do you have to like make it like a short feature? So I mean like so this is something that like I also like tell them is like when you want to make a short film, first understand that it's a format by itself. Short stories are not short novels, or novellas are not extended short stories, right? So short films are a format by itself, like a genre. I mean, I wouldn't say genre, yeah, format is the right word, format by itself. And I think like we should really embrace that. And yeah, it's a great space to experiment, so I think we should do more of that.
That's all the time we have for today. Thank you so much to all of you for joining us, and thank you so much to all of you for joining us as well.
Thank you.